situation. Um, First of all, there's a personal situation that that person is struggling with. We have to understand how they came to that point. Remember what my question is of every person you meet. What's standing between you and a relationship with the Lord Jesus? What's standing between the two of you? What is it? So I have to ask that question in my mind. There's a problem they're confronting. They need to see light at the end of the tunnel. In other words, they need hope that there's a solution. It's impossible for anyone to listen to a grand argument if you can't deal with the problem that they're dealing with. You've got to first solve that problem. I can present all the grand arguments in the world, but I've got to get that obstacle out of the way. What's keeping them from that relationship? You know, it's getting warm in here. I'm getting a little hot here. All right. All right. All right, here's I just took a shot at a few of these. I said, if it was family, each of these lines up with the 4 problems that we talked about. So if it was family, I might want to make them part of my family to show them ways that there is hope and purpose in life. 2, if joy and victory are not evident in the people of the church, I need to make my branch aware of that fact and call them to make a commitment to share the joys of their victories with others. 3, if it was powerful arguments of a college professor, I need to take them to the website areasontobelieve.org. You need to write that down, by the way. Okay, so, yeah, but I'm going to show it to you in a minute, but it's areasontobelieve.org. Okay. I need to witness about God on the 4th one, who he really is, how he really works. He is a loving, caring God, but he doesn't just spit out answers like a vending machine. He desires to have a real and lasting relationship with the atheist or agnostic friend. Turn to him and experiment on his promises in Scripture is the challenge. So I'm just giving solutions. I'm not just presenting the problem, but I wanted you to have ideas that you could use with that atheist friend. That has to happen first before you can present arguments. All right. Now, I've been sitting on my hot spot for about 20, 30 minutes here. This is a jumbled mess. It looks really nice on my phone. It says, God revealing himself through science and a finely tuned universe. So it answers questions, it says, does God exist? Is there any evidence of God? Why does it matter? Who is God? Why does the universe exist? Why is there suffering? Those are questions that atheists have. They want answered. All right? So if you go to this site, it's a reason to believe, and then you can't read that part, but it's .org. That's the site that you want to go to. If you go on down in the site, the rest of this comes out on the screen, okay. So it goes through scientific evidence. Does an atheist want to hear Scripture? No, they don't believe Scripture. So you're not going to convince them with that. You got to present something. So it's all logic and science. The whole thing is. Everything on this site is logic and science. Now, it supports the Bible and it supports Christ, but it's using logic and science. And so it says, come with us, take a deep dive. So if I click on that, read the evidence, if I go to that, or I go to the top and start here, it should take me, I don't know how it works with a hotspot. There it is, came right up. All right, so I spent about 1.5 years creating this website. I put about $2,000 or $3,000 into it. And I pay $150 a month to keep it going. And I had put 54 articles here. So if you click on Start Here, here are answers to their questions. First of all, it talks about the existence of God, and I give 5 arguments for the existence of God. It's good to go right in the order they're given. The moral argument is the best one. It's easiest to understand. The beginning and the Kalam argument is very easy to understand too. Those are 2 great ones to use. The fine-tuning argument is good. But when you get to this 4th one, that's for philosophers only. Stay away from that unless you got a philosopher, okay, or somebody that wants to study philosophy. Or this 5th one, both of those. So here's a summary of the 5 arguments. Okay, 5 excellent reasons to believe in God. God is the best explanation for the existence of objective moral values and duties. God is the best explanation for the beginning of the universe. God is the best explanation for why the universe is so finely tuned to sustain life. He's the best explanation for why anything at all exists rather than nothing. And the very possibility that God exists indicates to us that he actually does exist. That's a weird one, but it's philosophy. And somebody who likes all those heavy arguments, likes all that heavy stuff. First 3 are useful to the average person. They're very useful. If, fine-tuning, if the sun were 2% closer to the earth, all the water on the earth would dry up. If the sun were 2% further away, we'd have Siberia here. It'd be cold everywhere. It'd be freezing, 2%. If the tilt of the earth tilts at 23.5 degrees. If it altered somewhat, and it does a little bit of this, it does a little bit, just a little bit, but 23.5 degrees, if you altered that, you'd have terrible seasonal conditions. If it spun just a little bit faster than it is, you'd have winds all the time, constant wind currents. So those are all evidences of fine-tuning. And it goes down a list of like 20 of those. Talks about how finely tuned the earth is. It gets to the point where it's 1 times 10 to the negative 43rd on one of them. It's that finely tuned. Another one's like 10 to the 300th power, I think, 1 and 10 to the... So it just gets very, very finely tuned. I mean, more than our minds can comprehend. And it starts to amaze you when you hear all those facts as it gets more and more. I started with some of the, not so amazing stuff. But there's really amazing fine-tuning in that article, those articles on that. Beginning of the universe. Why is that important to an atheist? In the 1920s, Albert Einstein came up with the, theory of general relativity. First in 1905, he came up with special relativity. In 1950, he came up with general relativity. It's general relativity that rocked the world because it's about gravity. And it proved, somebody wrote him a letter, a Dutch astronomer, right after he came and published the theory, said, do you realize that what you have done is prove that the universe is expanding? Einstein got that letter and he was upset. He was angry. He said, you're trying to use my theory to prove that God exists. And I don't like that. It's supposed to be about science. And why was he so upset? How does that prove that God exists just because it's expanding, the universe is expanding? How does that prove that?
God is always creating.
If you run the movie of the exploding universe in reverse, it all comes back to what's called a Big Bang singularity, one atom. This is scientists saying this. Before that time, scientists tell us there was no, let's do a timeline like this, so you can think of it that way. Here's time progressing this way. So there's the past, here's the future, all right? And there's this explosion 16.8 billion years ago. I don't care if you believe in young Earth or old Earth. You don't have to believe in that to use the website. You can do either one. But what scientists are saying is that there was a beginning, and before that singularity, that single atom, there was no space, no time, no energy, no matter, no material, no physical material. Scientists are saying that. Well, if God is past eternal, all the way into the past, and he's future eternal, all the way into the future, where was God when there was no space, no time, no physical dimensions? It's hard to wrap your brain around this, but there was no physical, there was no up or down, sideways, there was none of that. There was no space, none. So no material could exist. So what that tells me is that God is an immaterial intelligence because he existed forever into the past. But the universe began at a specific point in time. Now, if you want to say that's 10,000 years ago or 16 billion years ago, the same thing still applies. But scientists is laying in our lap an argument for the existence of God that's so easy, you just got to reach out and take it. Candy from a baby. That's all you got to do. It's so simple. Because if there was a beginning, if you take this explosion and move it back in reverse and say before this point, this Big Bang singularity, there was no space, no time, no energy, no matter. The universe is comprised of those four things. That's what makes it a universe. It is not a universe without those four elements. Space, time, energy, matter. Before that, they didn't exist. Now they do. Okay, so if that's true, what caused that beginning? That's the question that haunts scientists everywhere, because nobody can explain it. Nobody can say, well, it was obviously this. What's interesting about the Jewish story of creation in Genesis? What is it that stands out from all other creation stories? It's the fact that there was no already existing matter. God did not pick up some already existing Play-Doh and make people. He didn't pick up already existing materials that were just sitting there and make the earth. He made it out of nothing. And that's called creation ex nihilo. E-X, and then a separate word, N-I-H-I-L-O. Out of nothing. Now, once you wrap your brain around all that I've just said, you've got yourself an excellent proof for the existence of God that you can tell any atheist friend or agnostic friend. Now, they're not going to listen to that argument until they get their problem solved and what's keeping them personally, the personal side of this issue. But once that's solved, you're ready to share with them about the beginning of the universe and how it happened. And if you want to believe it's 16.8 billion or if you want to believe it's 10,000, has our church ever taken a stand and said, it's a young earth or it's an old earth? I'm asking a question. No, our church has never taken a stand on that. So you were free always to believe whatever you wanted to believe as long as you believed that God was in charge of it. theistic, doesn't matter which theistic theory you wanted to believe, as long as it's theistic, God was involved. And, that's it. I'm sorry, it wasn't the second thing. Just that God was in the picture. So the only thing that's excluded is atheistic creationism, okay, or evolution, or whatever you want to call it. So we've got all these theories that our church members have believed over the years, and I know that there's some people that are just quaking in their boots saying, oh my goodness, I can't believe you're saying this, it's giving them a headache. And, but the church officially has never taken a stand on that. I'm sorry, that's just the fact, okay? So we're free as restorationists to believe what we want. Now, some people insist on a young earth. God bless them. That's great. That's okay. I have no problem with that. When I teach my students, I'm teaching creationism right now. I'm teaching the theory of general relativity, and I'm teaching about the beginning of the universe and how it proves the existence of God, so that when they get to college, they have an argument to throw at that professor that he is not going to suspect. He is not going to realize. He's going to get hit blindsided by it, because they're going to be loaded with arguments. They're going to have 5 arguments for the existence of God. So that's my desire. After Einstein came up with this theory, a guy by the name of Edwin Hubble came along. And he was a boxer. And they thought he might be the next Jack Dempsey. And he was a lawyer. He got his law degree, I think at Oxford. Well, he got his law degree someplace really high up. And what else? He was a great musician. And he was all these things. He was a Renaissance man. But he finally settled on astronomy. And he got the most powerful telescope in the world, 90 miles northeast of Los Angeles, up in the mountains. And he could see for the first time that they thought, out in the distance, in the 1920s, they were arguing about whether those were clouds of gas or galaxies. And they didn't know what they were, but they were all over the place. They could see them out the distance, but it was faint. He had this 100-inch telescope, okay, and he could see that they were galaxies. And he started plotting their movement. And when a galaxy or a planet or anything in space moves away from you, it's red. And when it moves toward you, it's blue. So that tells you something's moving away from you by the color. That's how you know it's called red shift. And he saw every galaxy, he saw 42 of them. He stayed for about a year. And every single one was moving away. With Einstein, it was true in theory. With Hubble, it was true as a fact. It became fact. 1929. So he proved that the universe was expanding. All right. So that's the beginning of the universe. That's all in this website. All that's described. That story about Einstein and about Hubble and all that stuff's in there. So you can find it very easily. There's no problem with putting your, I clicked when I shouldn't have, that tricky, wife accuse her all the time of clicking on stuff. It's always kind of a tricky figure, and I did that just now. Last night we were driving up here, and she was falling asleep. She had her iPhone, we were playing songs, and she'd fall asleep and her finger hit that, and the song would change abruptly. I go, what was that? So we were, all right. So we have the moral argument, the long cosmological argument, which is the beginning, the fine-tuning argument, and then those 2 other philosophical arguments. So you have 5 good arguments here on this site for the existence of God. Okay, so, and there are good books. There are things like Lee Strobel's books are good. This is Norman Geisler, a guy that I have a lot of his books. I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. I like that title. Then you got the Hinduism, I showed you that, and Islam. Let me see if I've got notes on that. All right, so how would I witness to a Hindu or a Buddhist or somebody with Islam? How would I witness to them? What would I say? Hindu says man is a god in embryo. He doesn't understand the spark of divinity within him. When he does understand that, he becomes one with the Brahman, the supreme soul of the universe, and experiences the bliss of nirvana. Buddhist says, I don't care. I don't care. When I can say that to everything, I've achieved nirvana. Islam says, obey the law of the Quran. And it's a religion of force. You're going to obey it. Okay? What can I show them that would kind of leapfrog past all this without me having to dig into real deeply their religion, each individual religion? How can I short circuit that process? All right. The best Christian debater in the world is William Lane Craig. Where's my water? Anybody heard of him? If you ever get his stuff, you should get it. You should, if you can get his stuff, you should. I first heard him about 20 years ago. William Buckley was the moderator, and William Lane Craig was the Christian. And then there was a guy from the Jesus Seminar, John Dominic Crossan. And I listened to those tapes till I wore them out. I got another set because I loved hearing these arguments, because I thought, here's somebody standing up finally. He goes to Harvard, he goes to Yale, he goes to Oxford, he'll go anywhere you want to go. He's debated the world's best except for one guy. But guys like Sam Harris, Daniel Dennett, some of the most well-known atheists in the entire world. Who is the most well-known atheist in the world? Richard Dawkins, biologist, Cambridge. All right, he won't debate Craig. He won't debate. But Christopher Hitchens has. Christopher Hitchens is dead now of cancer, but Daniel Dennett and all these other guys have debated Craig. He has a double PhD. He has a theology and philosophy. And that's a killer combination. And he debates any scientist, anybody who wants to debate him. He doesn't care. Very mild-mannered guy, short stature, not going to stand out in the crowd. And boy, can he knock you down in 2 seconds. He's amazing. You ought to just get his stuff on YouTube. Just get it and listen to this guy. You know he knows what he's talking about. I borrowed a lot of my stuff from him. My 5 arguments come from Craig. Okay, that's my source. But other people need to know, so I'm just trying to transmit this stuff. And I didn't come up with it. I'm not a philosopher. I don't. In fact, the last 2 arguments confused me just a little bit. You know, it's kind of tough. They're hard to follow. But the first 3 are easy as pie. They're just simple as can be.
Lastly, does he debate on religion?
He debates on the existence of God. He debates about Christianity versus other religions. He'll go debate a Hindu leader or a Buddhist leader. And there's some formidable leaders, too, of these religions that are great reasoners.
I didn't get that.
Yeah, he'll debate anybody on that stuff, but he's just an expert on this stuff. I mean, you couldn't be more expert than he is. And he's written so many books, and I've enjoyed following his stuff. So I teach that to the kids at CPRS. I teach them the easy arguments. I teach them how to say it. I make them memorize the argument. How long is that argument that I showed you? All right, it's 5 arguments. Where's is the summary. I just had it. Was it up or down? There it is. You are not connected to the... All right. Well, for each one, there's like 3 lines. That's all the kids have to memorize. And I tell them why it means what it means and how you support it. And we go through all these stories that I'm doing right now. So that's how to talk to an atheist or an agnostic. That's it. Any questions?
No, because I'm not a debater.
You don't have to be. You just show them that website and say, if you have questions, you call Bob Bobbitt or you call William Lane Craig.
I just told one time just to read the Bible.
Right. You don't have to come up with this stuff. It's really, it gives all the arguments. There's 54 articles right in order on that website. And it just goes right in order from no belief all the way to Jesus. So it just walks you through slowly, incrementally. It takes all the best arguments in the world and knocks them down. One at a time. I take all the best arguments and I put them right in order. So those 54 articles should keep you busy for quite a while. I mean, if you're interested in it, you know. If you're not, go to some other subject. God calls you to whatever area that you're adept at, you like, you know, he'll put that in your heart, what you should be doing as far as evangelism is concerned. For me, I like to be writing the material and give it to people. If anybody has a question, I'll be glad to answer it. But I like to give the missionaries material to take with them. We need curriculum badly in the restoration. That's something I realized a long time ago. And that's what this is intended to be, is curriculum. It serves as curriculum. I teach off this website. When I teach philosophy and religion, I go right down these subjects with the kids, and they learn a lot by doing that. Okay. So we've talked about atheism. I really need a connection to the internet. So let me see if I can set this up again. Type in that hotspot. You just gotta have to be patient. Out here, it's hard to get a connection. Tell you what I'll do. I'll just do it from memory. All right. Let me see. Oh, we disconnected first. Then it showed up. And iPhone.
Yeah, you keep going, I'll get it.
All right. It should. Oh, there's the password, but where do you put the password? It says it's connected. Maybe it is back on. Maybe it's back on now. Let's go back here. Yeah, it's back on. It's magic. You just unplug it, plug it back in. That's the highly technical solution to just about everything I've learned. That's all I know about technology. Unplug it, plug it back in, unplug it.
Unplug it first.
My wife says, you know so much about technology. I just say, unplug it, plug it back in. You know, she's so impressed. So, let me get this to the spot where it's supposed to be. Things that don't make sense. It's past that. Here it is. Okay. There are 4 evidences, if you want to write this down, it'll make it easy for you, for the resurrection of Christ. And it's all about, and just put this at the top, the majority of Bible scholars agree. Just put that at the top. The majority of Bible scholars agree. And I'll give you 4 things. You number them underneath that, 4 things to put. 1, Jesus actually died, because it's a question of whether he died. Some people question that. Jesus died and was buried in Joseph of Arimathea's tomb. That's number one. Jesus died and was buried in Joseph of Arimathea's tomb. The majority of Bible scholars agree on that. And you know, the majority of Bible scholars, some Bible scholars are atheists, some are agnostic, don't have any interest in the religion. They just enjoy studying the thing because it's an oddity to them. You know, they spend their whole lives on it. They love it. It's a hobby. And they say the majority agree that he was buried in Joseph of Arimathea's tomb. Number two, the tomb was found 3 days later to be empty by a group of his women followers. The tomb was found 3 days later to be empty by a group of his women followers. Why is women followers so important? In testimony in court in Jesus' time, who testified? Never women. You couldn't trust their word. You couldn't trust what they said. So only men. It was very misogynistic in that sense. So women could never testify. So you say, I saw him rob that store. Lady Caesar robbed that store. Means nothing to us. You can't get a court case. You can't get time on the docket in court. But if a man said, I saw him rob that store. Oh, okay. Let's put the wheels in motion to go after that guy, and we'll implement the Mosaic law and justice will be done. It was that different. What's the funny thing is, the women are the witnesses of the empty tomb. It's kind of like throwing it back at the culture, and saying, here are the people that you don't think are good witnesses. The Lord made them the people that discovered one of the greatest event in history. I mean, his birth, I think, would be second. His death accomplished our salvation. It saved the world, And the women are the witnesses of that, okay? So that's very significant historically. Third, number three, there were multiple resurrection appearances, post-mortem appearances, you could call them post-mortem appearances. Let's not call it resurrection. Post-mortem appearances of Christ to several different groups. What was the biggest group that saw him post-mortem? What was the biggest group? How many people? Book of Mormon, 2,500. Bible, let's say Bible. Just use the Bible. We'll tie half our brain behind our back, like Rush Limbaugh says. We'll get rid of the Book of Mormon. Just Bible, all right? 500. Boy, this guy knows his scriptures. Yes, that's exactly right. Where does it say that? That's exactly right again. He gets the chicken dinner. Winner. 1 Corinthians 15 says, after that he was seen by 500 what? Men. Yeah, brethren. Men, though. But it doesn't say women. It says 500 men. So it had to be seen by some women, too. So it's probably bigger than 500 that saw him, I would imagine. I just guessing, but I would imagine, because the records aren't going to say how many women. They just cut it right out of the record, usually. And that discovery at the tomb that it was the women was a great thing. 4, there was no other existing tradition in Judaism that would explain those appearances or the empty tomb or any of this. There was no other existing tradition in Judaism that would explain that. These are the 4 arguments that I memorized, and I committed memory when I heard Craig debating crossing, because I thought, this is so powerful. It was great. Well, there's Zoe, she's excited. Yay! So, has everybody got those 4? Let me stop there. Did you get all 4? You need clarification on any of that. Those are your evidences of the resurrection. Okay, so let's go back to, I'm witnessing to a Hindu friend, a Buddhist friend, Islamic friend. What can I show them? I can show them the resurrection of Christ, the eyewitness testimony for the resurrection of Christ. The majority of Bible scholars all believe what I'm saying. I've got them on my side. How are you going to fight with that? If you're opposing me, how are you going to fight with that? But I say the majority of Bible scholars who spent their entire lives on this thing, some of them atheists, say these 4 things are true. There was no other existing tradition in Judaism that would explain these events, the first 3 things. The burial, the empty tomb, and the post-mortem appearances. I remember it with just Biro in my mind. That's how I do things in my head. Biro is B-E-R-O, burial, empty tomb, resurrection appearances, and other tradition. That's how I remember it in my head. It's just, that's how I committed it to memory. So if somebody asked me, I could just say those 4 things right off the top of my head. And an atheist asked me, I could say, well, majority of Bible scholars agreed that, and you go through the list. Any other questions? All right, so how does that work with a Hindu? He goes, well, why did he die on the cross? It seems like a useless, what is that about? What kind of reaction do you get in Nepal to that, too? You talk about Christ, and is it foreign to them, or what's the reaction? How do they react? They say, are they interested? They're not. They kind of put you off. Hinduism claims, the leaders of Hinduism like Swami Vivekananda and all these different Swamis, Mahesh Yogi, that did transcendental meditation, had his headquarters here in Iowa. All these different guys say, well, Hinduism just blends in real nice with Christianity. It just goes together just great. You can still believe what you want to believe in and combine the Hindu beliefs and bring in yoga and meditation, all these things. And it's okay. But you know what? He's finding when he goes to Nepal, they do this, they stiff arm you. Okay? Because they don't want to hear about it. Because they already believe what they want to believe and they're not really interested. They're not looking for that. You know how many gods there are in Hinduism? 330 million gods. How did they come up with that number? How do you count that out? Who did that? But that's what they claim. 330 million gods. Plus pantheism, which means the universe equals God. So you've got all those things. So if I were trying to break through all that, and I didn't understand a lot about Hinduism, I'd go back to these 4 things on the resurrection of Christ. I'd go back to home base, and I'd say, well, think about this. Let me give you this thought to think about. Any questions on what I've talked about? How late does this go? Oh, does this go to 15 minutes. If I were talking to a Buddhist, what would be the reaction? I don't care. Maybe. What would it be? Have you ever talked to a Buddhist? I haven't talked to Buddhist. You know what the biggest Buddhist city, I think I read, in the world is? Los Angeles. It's coming your way to a theater near you. And Hindu temples are going up right and left. They tried to dedicate a temple in Connecticut. They built it 20 years ago. They just got it dedicated about 5 years ago, 20, yeah. It took about 20 years from the time they started building it before they could dedicate it. Why? Because this Hindu worships this god, Shiva, and this god worships Vishnu, and this guy worships Brahma, and they worship so many different gods. They had to have a room, special room for Shiva and Brahma and Vishnu and all the other gods before they would agree to support it. So you have all these different interests that have to be satisfied. They couldn't dedicate the building for 20 years. That's how long it took, because you had to take a poll of all the Hindus that are in the area, and is everybody happy? Okay, let's dedicate the building. It takes that long, because there's just so many different forms of Hinduism. Who's in charge of Hinduism? Who's the leader in the world today? There isn't one. They're all just different, disparate elements. They're just separate elements. So it's a wild mishmash of conglomeration of a lot of different things. Hinduism is pretty wild. I want to talk about Judaism because I haven't spent enough time on that. And, well, I did for a little bit in the first session. But if you're ever going to witness to a Jewish friend, you need this book. It's called the Tanakh. Tanakh. I was just telling Mark that stands for Torah. T-A is for Torah. N-A is for Nevi'im, which means prophecies. And K-H is for Ketuvim, which is the writings, the Psalms, what else? Proverbs, that kind of thing, So that's what it is. It's the Old Testament. It's the Old Testament. The Tanakh has the Torah in it, the first 5 books, plus the rest of it. But it's in 24 books. The Old Testament's normally 39, or ours is 38, and this is 24 books. They combine a bunch of them, but they're all there. They're all there. Okay? Let me pull this up. Escape. Come on. All right, let me search. Documents. Let's just go to Yeshua. Yeshua is the name for Jesus. Messiah. His Messiah is Yeshua. Here we go. All right, you can't quite see this, and I need to make it smaller, but there are 3 columns here. All right, who is Messiah? So you have a messianic prophecy on the left, Messiah's humanity. Then you have what the Tanakh tells you that was published by the Jewish Publication Society, what it says, and then here's the fulfillment in Christ's life in the New Testament. This goes on for several pages. I wrote this, and if you want it, you can have it. I don't know if you have a thumb drive or something, I can give it to you. All right, but that is what I would use to show a Jewish friend about Christ, that he really is the Messiah. Yeshua is the Messiah. He is the Messiah. Okay. Anyone else? Anything else on that? Judaism. Yeah.
Well, there's so many prophecies of Jesus in the Old Testament.
Brother Harper said that there are so many prophecies in the Old Testament of Jesus, you would think that they could see that it would be obvious that it was Christ. Who do Jews, though, believe that the Messiah is? See, this is what puts the blinders on. Who do they think he is or will be? not a God, not the Son of God, but a king, a human king, who will lead them to victory over their leaders. They have a saying in Judaism, next year in Jerusalem. And they also have a saying about, I can't recall what that is, but it's about victory, where Israel will be victorious over their enemies. So it's really a military victory. He's going to lead them to a military victory, and they will dominate. There will come a time that they will dominate the earth, or not be oppressed anymore, and they will be victorious. Just like the brief time. You know, the only time they were not under the thumb of an oppressive regime was 168 BC, when the Hasmonean dynasty, the Maccabees, defeated the Seleucids, the Greek representatives, and they threw off the chains of oppression for this brief period from 168 to 63 BC, when the Romans came back in. That's it. All the other centuries they've been under oppression from some government. That's why they celebrate Hanukkah. It celebrates that few brief years that they were free. And that time is going to come again in the end, when Messiah, this victorious king, leads them to victory. Does everybody know these facts? Okay, good. Because I'm telling you, I thought maybe you know this already or whatever. So, all right. So that's what they look forward to, is an earthly, regular Messiah. That's why they miss what you're talking about. That's how I got on that subject. You said you would think that they would see these prophecies, the Old Testament, they'd add it all up, and they'd realize it was Jesus. But they're not looking for Jesus. They're not looking for the Son of God. They're looking for a victorious king, Jewish king of the tribe of Judah. He'll be of the tribe of Judah. Well, who's the victorious king? Let's go down the list. Was Jesus of the tribe of Judah? Yeah. Will he be a victorious king when he returns? Yeah, he's going to be a victorious king. I mean, it fulfills what they're looking for, but they're just not looking for that. So they go, that's not it. That can't be it. But it is it. You know, it is it.
It's because he came as a baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
But you were right when you said they were blinders, because God made them blind in part for our sake. Their time will come.
Right.
When the Gentile time comes.
Right. We have a lot of prophecies in Restoration Scripture. In the Book of Mormon and Doctrine and Covenants, like 108, it says that Ephraim and his fellows, the servants, 10 tribes, I think is what it is, will set the wedding table. Here's our calling as a people. That's us. Is we're going to get to sweep the floor, clean up the restrooms, fix the food, and lay out the table for all the nations of the earth to come and visit and eat at the wedding table. The 10 tribes, Ephraim and the 10 tribes. So they're going to have that job, which I think is the most privileged job there is, to be there, to prepare, to work, to do all that preparation. And then the nations of the earth are going to come and sit at the wedding supper of the Lamb. Now, that's just an analogy, but it's just as real as if, that were literally going to happen. Could literally happen. Could. But as a people, that is our calling, to be the servant race, to clean up the restrooms, to sweep, to get ready, to prepare, and invite the nations of the earth to come. And that's where the Jews, it says in 108, after their pain, should come in remembrance before the Lord and lay their gifts before Ephraim, my servants, and recognize the Messiah and embrace the Messiah, Christ. That's what's going to happen. That's our future. That's what's going to happen. That's all about that prophecy with come down from the north countries and all that stuff. That's all going to take place at that time. That's the thing we have to look forward to. It's a wonderful thing that's going to happen in our future, I hope, in our lives. Just like Jews say next year in Jerusalem, Well, at our branch retreat 2 weeks ago, we said, we got wristbands that said, next year you can sign. Next year, next year. That's all it